Well, friends, good morning. So, we hear about God's law today in these readings. First reading from Deuteronomy and then also again in this gospel. Now, here's one of the things that's difficult for us as like Americans is we have an interesting relationship to the law. Philosophically, Western civilization, our understanding of the law has been, certainly for the past few hundred years, law has been seen as this force that constricts and constrains freedom. It's not exactly the biblical view, right? The law is seen, and the biblical read, the law is seen as an expression of God's heart. It's an expression of his love. Like he says no precisely because he loves his sons and daughters, he loves his children. And if those of you who are parents, which I know many of you are grandparents, you understand that already implicitly, that the no that you speak to your kids, that you spoke to your kids, is not because you're cruel. It's the expression of a heart that loves. It's the expression of a heart that loves. So again, this deep connection between the first reading from Deuteronomy and the gospel that we have today. So this reading from Deuteronomy, through Moses, what is happening? God is giving his people, whom he freed, by the way, from the Exodus, right? So the great liberation of his people, him freeing them, he's now giving them these statutes and ordinances that they might remain free, right? The commandments, the Decalogue, the Ten Commandments come in the context of God's liberating of his people, as if he's saying, if you would remain free, then you must do the following. Then you, at the very least, this has got to be part of your life. This is how you have to order your life if you would remain free, if you would flourish, if you would become attractive to other nations. And now then Jesus, in the gospel, Jesus comes on the scene, right? This rabbi from Nazareth, and he starts making these stunning claims, right? He says to faithful Jews for whom the law was everything, he says to them, don't think that I came to abolish the law. If you're in the crowd, if you're one of these Jews, you're thinking, who does this guy think he is, right? Don't think I came to abolish the law. Well, obviously, Jesus. And then he adds, I came to fulfill it. And then again, you're thinking in the crowd, who in the world does this guy think he is? He came to not abolish, but to fulfill the law. The word that Jesus uses here for fulfill, it carries this connotation of bringing something to its fullness, in the sense of making the thing bear the fruit that it was always potentially capable of bearing. That's the connotation that he's using here in this idea of fulfillment. See, here's the problem, that the Pharisees and the scribes, right, the people that Jesus is always running into, butting heads with in the gospel, they made a very understandable but critical mistake in their understanding of the law, their approach to the law. This thinking that says that if I just try really, really hard, I can perfectly keep the commandments. I can perfectly fulfill the demands of the law. No, not even close. You can understand why they made that error, but that's the critical error. St. Augustine, he brilliantly said, that the law was given in the Old Testament, the law was given that grace might be sought. And grace was given that the law might be fulfilled. Let me say that again. The law was given that grace might be sought, and grace was given that the law might be fulfilled. Right, the law was given in a certain sense so that the Israelites, God's people, would come to this realization of, I can't do this on my own. I can't do this on my own. I need a power extrinsic to me, to enter me, to enable me to do this. Like, that's exactly what Jesus is getting at when he says, I came to fulfill the law. It's not as though he comes along, and it's not as though he's saying, boy, these laws just don't go far enough. No, it's rather that they don't go deep enough. He doesn't intensify like the specificity of the demands. He came to give us the power to live out the deepest demands of the law in the first place. St. John Paul II, he makes a distinction between the ethic of the law and the ethos of the law. The ethic is the external prescription, right? Thou shalt not kill. The ethos is the internal transformation of the heart such that the heart is effortlessly and freely fulfilling the demands of the law, right? Like, if I'm chained to a chair because I'm in the presence of my mortal enemy and I want to kill him, the chains are the only thing preventing me from carrying out the desire to kill this person. Am I freely fulfilling the law's demand of thou shalt not kill? No, I'm being constrained. I'm being constrained. But if I now have a heart that's filled with love, that sees even my enemy as someone that I desire to pour myself out for and to sacrifice for, now my heart has been transformed in such a way that I am now fulfilling the deepest demands of the law. This is the idea. This is the idea. It's about radical transformation. That's what Jesus came to effect, a radical transformation of the heart. Right? The word radical comes from the Latin root radix, which means root. He wants to get his grace all the way down to the root of the problem. Again, St. John Paul II, he said this. He said that Christ's words right here in this gospel, what do they show? They show how deep down it is necessary to go. How the innermost recesses of the human heart must be thoroughly revealed so that this heart might become a place in which the law is fulfilled. Friends, if you and I are only keeping the commandments because of the mere fact that there are these external restraints, then that's an indicator that we have not allowed Christ to get deep down into the innermost recesses of our hearts, to the place where we are still at war against God's commands. Jesus, enter in deeply, right here. Transform my heart at the depths. Transform my heart at the depths to make me freely aligned with the demands of the law. Because your law is life-giving. Your law is freedom. Your law is life.